thinks of a powerhouse, a manufacturing giant. But how sustainable is China's current manufacturing model given the rise in disruptive 3D manufacturing technologies? A very good morning, everyone. I'm Ruchi, and these are my teammates Zahal, Sam, and Jeremy, and we are Business Solutions. Today, we are here to convince you that China can not only retain its dominant position in the market, but also emerge stronger, leveraging on the same technologies that currently threatens it. So let us first see China as the world's factory today. So China has replaced the US in 2011 as the world's manufacturing hub and is today a manufacturing powerhouse. And therefore, they have championed the traditional manufacturing technique, which starts with raw materials and then goes all the way to assembly, warehousing, and finally reaches its customer after going through several, we can see 6 stages that we have in the current production model. And this production then goes to serve the domestic consumption and also to the international markets in the form of exports. And this is a major growth driver in China today. And the reasons for the success is not something special. We all know this. It's because of China's low labor cost, undervalued currency that is what was driving growth till now, and the standardized products that China was producing in mass. And therefore, we can see that low manufacturing cost was the competitive advantage that China had, and that is why it was so successful in the world. And the effects was obvious to the world that China increased its standards of living and also doubled its GDP per capita in just 10 years' time. So but times are changing now, like we always say, and so is the manufacturing landscape in China. So what is happening? China's manufacturing position is being threatened because of its weakening competitive advantage. And why is that so? In recent years, we have seen currency appreciation, and which has made exports less attractive to the world market. There's also rising labor cost, which makes production costs higher. And we also see a changing behavior patterns and changing preferences of our consumers today. They are now demanding customized and personalized products, which is very different from what China was doing recently, which is mass production. And therefore, the biggest thing is the rise in disruptive and innovative technologies. So what this does is it threatens the manufacturing from shifting from China to those of the rich countries that the economists have suggested. So how can China protect its position in the market? We see the adoption of 3D printing as the way to sustain your position in the market. Why is that so? Firstly, the agility, the flexibility that 3D printing will give you. 3D printing makes it possible to adapt the products to the preferences of our consumers. It is also favored because of the complexity of the objects it can manufacture, because it can go and manufacture the intricate objects which the traditional manufacturing cannot currently do. And it is also present in the point of purchase, which is very special when it comes to 3D printing. This is not possible in the traditional model of manufacturing. The second is the low cost in the long run. This low labor requirement, also there's reduced wastage, and now we can decrease the production and delivery time to our consumers. So what this does is that this makes 3D printing the manufacturing of the future, and therefore we see that we can now shift from high volume to low volume and tailored made products. So what are the opportunities? I mean, we have told you that 3D printing is the way to go, but does the infrastructure in China actually support this? Our answer is yes, it does. Firstly, the patents that surrounds 3D printing is expiring in 2014, which makes it much cheaper to adopt 3D printing, and also there's massive support from the Chinese government to do so. China has actually spent 3.3 USD in the investments to build 10 innovative centers only dedicated to 3D printing. And this gives a huge support to the manufacturers which are going forward for 3D printing. And we suggest that you leverage on these opportunities to improve and differentiate China once again, in the future as a manufacturing hub. But we understand the limitations. Will all industries adopt 3D printing? We have analyzed different industries for you, and we suggest that the segments of the manufacturing industry that should adopt 3D printing is the consumer goods segment. And why is that so? Is because The labor requirements and the consumers' changing preferences is the highest in the consumer goods segment, and we think that 3D printing currently is apt for this market. So let me present to you our strategy for you today. We will first answer why you should adopt 3D printing and why consumer goods in particular should adopt this model. Then we'll tell you how should you go about this 3D printing model, and lastly we'll tell you about the benefits and address the risks that come along with that, and then of course we'll see some financials. Now I'll pass my time to Jeremy, who will take over.
Thank you, Ruchi. The first question that I would like to answer today is why. We hope that through this presentation we'll be able to convince you why your company should adopt 3D printing going forward. We'll first be analyzing your current business model as well as the traditional supply chain that you have currently today. We understand your company. Your company is a fast-moving consumer goods company that manufactures and specializes in phone accessories. So what does it mean is that you're able to capitalize on huge trends within the mobile market by producing sub-products such as accessories like the mobile phone covers, the screen protectors, as well as different kind of products such as styluses, as well as camera enhancement lens for your consumers. Essentially, you're capitalizing on a huge trend within this mobile industry, and we believe that 3D printing can be a huge opportunity for you. So what are the key features that you have in your business? Firstly, you are a business-to-business model, which means that as a manufacturer, you are working closely with retailers as your client, by having a strong relationship with your retailers, you are able to ensure the long-term viability of your business. The second key feature is that you are in a dynamic and fast-moving industry, with the mobile market constantly changing with different models as well as different brands coming up, as well as the need for as well as the want for consumers to have continuous change in terms of the design and model of these phone cases. Your business model needs to be adaptive, and we believe that 3D printing can present an opportunity for you as well. The third feature is that it's driven by derived demand, which means that increase in demand for iPhones as well as different mobile phones will mean an increase in business for you. And you need to be adaptive by working and understanding the different needs as well as changing interests within the industry. And we believe that 3D printing also presents an opportunity for you. The next thing that we plan to do is to look at your current traditional business model, which is what you have right now in China. The traditional business model is in such a way whereby you will start off with a designing process, whereby designers from overseas will work with you and send you their designs before you produce a prototype in China and send it back to them. Now, after the designing process is confirmed, you'll be moved on to the manufacturing process, where there will be mass manufacturing within China itself, and these products will then be transported to the warehouse distributors before it's passed on to the retailers and reaching the end consumers. This is the traditional business model for most of the manufacturers in China, and we now look at the specific parts within this traditional business model and show how 3D printing can help you. The first issue that we identified is with the starting process of designing. Designing a prototype is actually done through traditional sand and mold technology, whereby the designers will send you the designs that they have come up with, and you will produce a prototype and send a physical copy cross-Atlantic back to the countries. And this is very prevalent in your current business because most of the designs are done in the United States and Europe, whereas the manufacture of the prototype is done in China. So the issues that we find here is that it's physically cumbersome because there's a lot of time required to send these prototypes to and fro, which on average, research has shown to be 7,000 to 8,000 miles. It takes 2 to 3 months on average to finalize a prototype before it's pushed out. And we believe that with 3D printing, we can help you to speed up the process. The second issue that we identify is with the mass manufacturing process, where we realize that one of the key unique value proposition of a China manufacturer is that they are able to produce high volume, low customization at low cost. This used to be the traditional model for China businesses. However, moving forward, customers are requiring different kind of needs, where customization of phone cases as well as the need to be adaptive and meet the changing customer trends is crucial for your business. And hence, we found an issue with the current manufacturing process whereby it's very rigid because the production of specific products can only be fixed and you will not be able to change and transform to other kind of products fast enough, and it's not responsive enough to the changing needs of your end retailers. So with 3D printing, we believe that we can help you as well. The third issue that we find is with the last process of transporting from warehouse, distributors to retailers and consumers. We find that one key issue with the current business model right now for a manufacturer is that there's a lack of connection with that of retailers and consumers. What is the implication of this? This means that as a manufacturer, you're unable to understand the needs and grounds of the changing consumer within the consumer market because you are only focused on the upstream of the supply chain. Hence, we believe that this is an issue because there's informational asymmetry, whereby the time lag as well as the lack of understanding of the demand from the customers means that the demand and supply mismatch leads to inventory build-up and higher cost for you. And with 3D printing, we believe that it presents opportunity because it allows you to touch base with retailers and consumers on the ground. And now I'll pass on the time to Tzu Hao to explain to you the 3 different opportunities where 3D printing can apply to your company.
Alright, thank you, Jeremy. Now I'm sure my colleagues have shared with you how 3D printing is such an opportunity for you as a traditional manufacturer, but it's still not something we can jump in straight away. Why? Because 3D printing is a capital-intensive business. At the same time, we need to build up core capabilities such as training as well as technical proficiencies to operate this, as well as gain buy-in of our various stakeholders. So for phase 1, what we recommend for you in the first year is to adopt 3D printing for your prototyping processes as well as build up your capabilities in the long run. Your second phase will include bringing 3D printing into your manufacturing processes with a dual line manufacturing operations. And your last phase, which is our big idea and plenty exciting, is bringing 3D printing to your consumers, creating a point of sale systems for your retail and trade partners. So let us go and take a look at phase 1. We need to overcome a couple of the key barriers that are stopping you as well as other key manufacturers from adopting 3D printing. The first of which is a lack of talent and proficiencies. Your current manpower that is proficient in traditional manufacturing will not have the skills and the talent needed to operate these 3D printing facilities. So what we need is talent injection, creating an initial team of 5 to 6 specialists in operating 3D printers. There are several key talent pipelines we are looking at, the first of which is young tech graduates which can be trained, as well as people within the industry itself in China or Asia that have experience dealing with 3D printers. Additionally, we also want to start to develop shared expertise within your workforce. And we can work with the 3D printer suppliers to train our workforce as well as do gradual rotations within our traditional workforce as well. Other key issues that we would like to briefly touch on is cost. As it's capital intensive, we are using a phased development and as well as quality control. That is why in the first phase, we're only using it to refine our prototype process in order to understand the process better for quality control. We get to the next slide, please. So, moving on, what do we mean by implementing it in prototyping? Well, basically what you have now is a very long and arduous process between your design firm and your factories in China, and it takes about 2 to 3 months for your prototyping process to take place. And we feel that this is largely inefficient because due to rapidly evolving consumer demands. For example, the designs right now that are popular for iPhone cases may not be popular 1 month later, and this is something we really need to respond quickly and be agile to. So what we propose is to allow our trade partners to have prototyping in-house, and how we do so is by launching 3D printing services within their offices, as well as creating a service team to go around servicing them and teaching them how to use these 3D printers to develop their prototypes. This will allow us to make the process a lot more agile, reducing the time required to about 1 to 2 months to develop a prototype that meets consumer needs. And we feel that this is the best way for you to start using 3D printers as you make your supply chain a lot more responsive to consumer demand and allowing greater sales for our trade partners. Moving on in phase 2, we can move on with our gained expertise and knowledge in operating 3D systems, as well as the reputation with our trade partners to bring 3D printing into our manufacturing. We plan to introduce a new fleet of 3D manufacturing processes, expanding the workforce and expanding on the established user base of phones, like Jeremy mentioned. Additionally, we do not plan for you to sort of cut off all your traditional facilities. We feel that both 3D and traditional manufacturing can coexist together with synergy. 3D printing can focus on lines with shorter product life cycles, such as iPhone cases and as well as phones, while traditional manufacturing can focus on, we can retain the operations and capabilities and focus on product lines that have longer product life cycles. So our last phase, which is our big idea, which is largely about bringing 3D printing capabilities to consumers. Now we understand that we already brought 3D printing to the manufacturing phase as well as the prototyping phase, but maybe we can do something on the consumer point of sales as well. Taking to mind that right now our design firms from our trade partners are sending in us virtually all the designs for the new prototypes. We can also feed these to the retail stores through establishing point of sales in stores to show new designs. Designers need merely send these designs digitally to the central database, and consumers can vote on their preferred designs to give us a better sensing of aggregate demand. This will increase our demand forecast accuracy as well as increase greater value add to our trade partners. So we have pretty much a very brief idea on the 3 phases of how we're going to implement 3D printing for your firm, and we're happy to expand this in Q&A. The first phase increases capabilities and reduces lead time. Next, we increase your manufacturing competitiveness, and the last one, we increase your demand accuracy and increase your value add to your trade partners, which is tremendously important. Now Sam will bring you through the nitty-gritty of implementation.
Thank you. So my colleagues have touched points on how this whole plan will roll out, but it is important that we look at what are the benefits that will bring about to your company. First of all, it speeds up from conceptualization to commercialization. We know that out there the market is changing really fast, and it is very important that we bring our product from design phase to commercialization fast, so in order to meet the changing demand. Second of all, we understand that we are at initial phase, we find it really hard to forecast demand. Therefore, there are issues such as wastage. We produce a lot of unpopular goods, and now this become obsolete. So with this model, we can reduce wastage costs. And thirdly, we can look at improving relationship with our trading partners. We believe that this is really important because in the long run, 3D printing will come and disrupt this space. Therefore, it is important that we build close connection to ensure that the customers' needs are being met, and this will ensure that our demand and our manufacturing are still relevant going forward. Then, we also identified a few key risks that you might face with implementation of our plan. First of all is the quality of products. These are the risks identified by PwC, so we want to address them. So there are trigger points that we can look into, for example, declining sales, as well as customer complaints. So how can we mitigate this? We'll work closely with our retailers to find out what are the changing needs out there in the customers that's responsible for the decline in sales, as well as more stringent checks and control to ensure that the products that we bring up to the market are of certain quality. And next, we are ability to retain talent is important because a lot of this strategy involves around hiring of talent, retaining of talent, getting the talent to work with our stakeholders and our trading partners. So the trigger point is if we see increasing of churn rate, that is where we want to look at perhaps the remuneration package with our employees, as well as having a mentorship program so that we are not too reliant on one individual, whereas the information and knowledge can be spread with the employees, so this allows us to continue business and not rely too much on a single individual. So briefly, this is our implementation timeline. In summary, we'd like to draw focus on the talent acquisition. We understand that talent acquisition is hard, therefore we should do it at the immediate start as soon as possible. And also in the long run, when we want to expand and with our working with retailers, we will also look at hiring sales individuals and also a team of servicing crew, because we understand with 3D printers all around, there needs to be a servicing crew to maintain them. And lastly, this is a few cost breakdown. Under the backdrop of reducing costs over time, we see that the key costs are labor, material, and machine. Initially, there will be a huge sum of money poured into labor because we are hiring talent to roll out all our programs, but in the long run we see that this will reduce, as well as the material costs and also the fixed costs for the machines. So with that, we believe that these are the key benefits that you will have when you adopt our plan.
In conclusion, we just told you why there's an imperative need for China to go into 3D printing and which industry should do so. We then told you how 3D printing can complement your traditional manufacturing processes and also the benefits that you can look forward to. And we told you how you should overcome the challenges that come with 3D printing, which we do also understand. And therefore, we believe that China, by doing this, can not only protect its position in the market, but also emerge stronger, as we said, in the the manufacturing industry. So thank you very much for your attention. We'll be now taking any questions.
Thank you. So we may be asked first question.
Sure.
It seems to me that this is a very nice business case, well presented. I like the approach of phase implementation. It lasts about 5 years. But can you tell us what will the breakdown period, in which year we can actually have some real profit resulting of applying these 3D models? Because you show us the cost, but you didn't show us the benefits.
We understand that. Yeah. Well, looking at the phases what we have, one reason why we didn't do a quantitative analysis was due to lack of information on sort of the margin structure we have for these firms. But what we can give you in a ballpark sense is the moment when you can start expecting to break even and gain some revenues. We plan to do so at the end of each phase, because you see that the investments for each phase is quite separate. For example, in phase 1, what we plan to do is actually invest in 3D printing and HR to bring it to the designers. And hopefully that will increase sales for our trade partners, which ends up being more business for us. So if the increase in sales can actually offset the increased cost, we feel that that will be a signal that we can move on to the next phase, and that will be the breakdown.
And if I can touch on briefly, first of all, we understand for this industry, the speed of rolling out is really fast.
Yeah.
Initially, it's about 2 to 3 months, so we are talking about 2 to 3 months loss of sales. But if we can speed this process up with our implementation, we can increase revenue in a sense. And for cost-wise, one of the key costs is also material costs. So we see that initially, back 5 years ago, material cost is as much as 50 times to 100 times that of traditional method if we use 3D printing. But today, one firm can be as efficient as 5 times traditional cost. So we are talking about 10 times reduction. So going forward, if technology improves, cost will gradually reduce, as well as we are at the same time we are able to capture new market with our efficient conceptualization to commercialization plan.
Correct. And just to build on to that, we have always been talking about cost, but on the revenue side, we are really excited because we understand that your business is a B2B relationship, whereby as a manufacturer, you're not only just working with, for example, Apple, but most of the companies are actually working with multiple retailers. And with a strong relationship that you can build with your retailers by offering different kind of services that other manufacturers couldn't provide for them, you actually stand out in terms of providing the key unique value proposition that you can give to retailers. And we expect that the revenue will actually come from improvement in the number of contracts that you can secure with the retailers, as well as the skill that is likely to increase with the kind of services that 3D printing can provide for you. Thank you.
I've just got a question on why do you think 3D printing is going to help China, when a lot of because it's a new disruptive technology, it's likely to take market share, global market share away from China, because there's no need to go to a model of looking for low-cost suppliers anymore. 3D printing actually brings the ability to manufacture in the Western countries, gives them more power. So why do you think, so from a Chinese manufacturing perspective, what do we have to do to stop that loss of market share?
First of all, answering your question of why China needs to adopt 3D technologies in the first place, the point is, if China as a traditional manufacturing hub does not, what happens when it does not adopt 3D printing? As we have seen, people like economists are suggesting that China will lose that power it has over the world when it comes to manufacturing if it does not evolve with the world or with the technologies. And why is that so? Because the competitive advantage that China initially had in manufacturing, which led to its so much success, was low labor costs, which we currently see is not true anymore because labor costs are rising. Then our currency was undervalued in the past, and now we see renminbi appreciating further as we go in the future, which makes exports less attractive as well. So we need to do something about our manufacturing hub so that it can still have that have an attraction towards the external market in general, and we see 3D printing as a way to go forward, not replacing our traditional manufacturing model, but rather complementing it, because now we can provide services that we couldn't before, and that will kind of balance off the labor costs that are increasing and the manufacturing costs that are going up, because now we're providing quality services and also customization and personalization for our customers, which we couldn't do before because of our mass production that was happening.
So if I could have a second question. So that implies that China needs to be a leader in this industry, as opposed to historically being just an innovative imitator of Western goods. We'd have to take the lead to keep the market share. Is that correct?
Sorry, do you mind if you clarify your question?
So I'm just so my question is,
Yes.
you were saying China manufacturing base will have to lead in the deployment and use of 3D printing
Yes.
in order to retain its market share.
Correct. Yeah. Our view is that 3D printing is a disruptive technology that could potentially disrupt the whole business model of manufacturing, where retailers are able to manufacture by themselves. You have seen some cases, for example, Toys R Us managed to manufacture the duck within their store, and essentially displacing your role as a manufacturer. And for China, our recommendation to the manufacturers within China is to take a more proactive approach, being more active in leading the 3D wave, as well as engaging the retailers by providing services that you're not used to providing, but because of your embracement towards 3D technology, you're able to capitalize on this trend and also enhance the offerings that you can have to the retailers.
And as you mentioned, the need for China to be a leader in the world market, we completely agree with that. And that's why when the world is still apprehensive about 3D technologies, there are reports which suggest that 3D technologies is only going to grow in the future. And we see other trends in the Chinese market which supports the adoption of the 3D technologies. That's why we want China to adopt the phases that we have mentioned, to be the first country in the world to actually adopt 3D technologies as a complement to its traditional model, which we don't see happening a lot in the world. And that's how China can be a world leader again and redefine manufacturing as it comes in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question about the phase 3. I think it's an interesting concept in terms
yeah.
of working with the retailers. So another trend that we also see, similar to how production is becoming more decentralized, you can actually
Yes.
manufacture everywhere else. Retailers are also becoming a lot more decentralized. So the traditional big box retailers, Walmart, etc., are kind of losing some of the competitive edge to some of the kind of small, quote unquote, mom and pop shops you can open in your own basement. So as a manufacturer, I mean, like, part of what makes us successful is the ability to actually produce en masse. And if we were to invest quite a bit on 3D printing to actually go and disseminate our manufacturing into the retail stores, like, what are your thoughts as to how can we maintain that level of competitiveness compared to some of the guys who's just down the road able to do exactly the same thing as I am without the huge initial outlay of capital, because they can just invest in a few printing in their own town, in their own neighborhood, etc. What are your thoughts on how do I, as a big manufacturer, how do I compete against this quote unquote guerrilla warfare of kind of small scale manufacturers?
But we understand your point. You are a big manufacturer, but you still need to reach out to your customers and give that personalized experience. It's not easy because these small shops are present where they live and you don't. So that's why we have suggested what you do is still have that relationship with the retailers where you can have your 3D printing devices and capture the trend in the market. If a consumer likes a certain kind of product, we will show the prototype to them in that shop, and then we can take away that prototype and manufacture in mass in our own company. So it's all about the relationship we have with our retailers and capturing that statistics that happen in the shops. So right now what we have is a distinct communication system. The retailers only know what happens in the shop and we have no idea what the consumers want. But right now we are trying to bridge that gap, that information gap that we have between manufacturer and retailers by bringing that 3D technologies in the shops. We are not telling you to manufacture in the shops. We're just telling you to prototype in the shops, get that trend, and then we come back to our industries where we have our infrastructure, and then we mass manufacture that customized product. So it's both mass production, but also a customized, because we have captured that trend that is happening in the shops.
And if I can just add to that, I understand your concern that essentially if we are competing against smaller retailers, they can be a lot more agile and customize needs towards consumers to precisely what they want. And we find that this is something which we will not be able to emulate 100%, because what we have on the other hand with scale is economies of scale. So we can produce customized products that meet the general trend of consumers at a much lower cost. And for those smaller firms that plan to release very customized products, those will come at a premium. And I think that as such, we will be competing on different spaces with those smaller ones, as opposed to ourselves catering to the larger consumer base.
Thank you.
I'm just like to follow up on this third way, because I do see the channel as being very exciting and possibly to be a true digital channel where you can go direct to the customers via the internet to create designs for them tailored. How would you see that evolving in terms of our company? Would you see that starting once we had understood the basic principles of manufacturing? At what point in the growth of our company should we consider to try a purely digital channel to direct to the consumer?
Based on our, you may take that first.
Okay, I think definitely that is a very valid question. Thank you for the question. The technology itself is currently at its infancy stage. As we have seen, the patent was created in 1980s, and even up to 30 years later today, the technology isn't really well developed. And it's not in a situation where we are able to create 3D printing digitally on our computers and send it to a 3D printer and get the design out immediately. This is something that is in the making, and we believe that for our third phase technology to be rolled out successfully and to revolutionize how manufacturing and retailing is working right now is when we are able to have improvements in the 3D technology significantly, such that it has a user interface that is so friendly to all consumers that they're able to log into their computers, create designs from a software that's user-friendly for all consumers, and be able to send the designs to the manufacturer that can create it immediately for them. That itself may take some time, but we foresee that it could be possible that in the coming 10 to 20 years, it could be this dream could be a possibility as well. That's how we foresee it.
And I think if you can just add to that, I think one way which could make it a little more achievable in the short run would be to, like our presentations mentioned, create point of sales in retailers. And basically what those consumers will be doing will not be creating designs on the whole, but they'll be seeing feeds firsthand from what the design firms are currently having with their prototypes, and they can vote on what they want. And we feel that can be established once we have worked successfully with all our trade partners with the design firms on creating a key communication channel between developing prototypes through 3D printing.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.